Welcome back to Moose on the Loose. Today we've got an absolute sizzler in the House of Commons. Things are heating up. That breaking point that I've been talking about for a while is starting to come here. Both the Liberals getting nervous about pushing this nonsense of the carbon tax, and they just keep doubling down on the lies, and Pierre Poilievre calls them out. You're going to see a huge blow up between the Housing Minister, Sean Fraser, and Pierre Poilievre. So let's jump into this.
We are here to help Canadians with checks. We are here to fight against climate change.
Understand that after 8 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost. And they're right. According to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, this Prime Minister's carbon tax will cost the average Nova Scotia family $1,500. That's why the Nova Scotia legislature voted unanimously, Liberals, Conservatives and NDP, to call on federal MPs representing the province to vote with the common sense Conservatives to spike the hike. Will he allow a free vote so Nova Scotians can vote for their constituents rather than the party boss?
A family of four in Nova Scotia gets about $824 back in the year for the price on pollution. The Canadian carbon rebate delivers more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians right across the country. The Leader of the Opposition wants to take away those Canada carbon rebate checks from Canadian families, where 8 out of 10 families do better, even with the price on pollution. It's a way of fighting climate change, of building a safer, more prosperous future, and putting more money back in the pockets of Canadians, something he wants to take away.
It's all lies, man.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister has finally done something helpful when it comes to math. He says that his rebate for Nova Scotians is $850. Well, the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that the cost is $1,500 for the average Nova Scotia family. So he wants to take away $1,500 from the average Nova Scotia family in carbon taxes and give back only $850. Everybody knows that the carbon tax is just like him, not worth the cost. Will he allow a free vote?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Leader of the Opposition wants to take away the Canada carbon rebate checks that land in Nova Scotians' mailboxes, but in the pockets of families right across the country where the price on pollution is in place, because 8 out of 10 of them do better with the price on pollution and the Canada carbon rebate than they would. He wants to take away those checks from Canadians, and he wants to do far less to fight against the climate change impacts the Canadians are feeling from coast to coast to coast. No plan for the future, no money for Canadians.
You shouldn't be able to lie like that.
Mr. Speaker, the tax revolt has spread to Ontario, where now the Liberal leader of the provincial party has flip-flopped and says that she too is against the Prime Minister's carbon tax. Maybe that's because she read the Parliamentary Budget Officer report showing Ontarians will pay $1,674. That's more than $600 more than the rebate in that province. So, will the Prime Minister allow his Ontario MPs to have a free vote on our common sense Conservative motion to spike the hike?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, families in Ontario are facing higher prices for groceries, higher costs for rent, and we are delivering a Canada carbon rebate that leaves them better off. 8 out of 10 Canadian families across the country do more money in their pockets with the Canada carbon rebate than...
I think his entire plan here for this session is just to say Canada carbon rebate as much as possible. He's trying to create that as some sort of brand that gets him more votes. It's really pathetic.
The price on pollution costs them. At the same time, the price on pollution is bringing down carbon emissions, preparing a cleaner economy of the future, and putting more money back in Canadians' pockets. The Conservatives want to take away the Canada carbon rebate.
There it is.
We're going to continue to support families on affordability and fighting climate change.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Right from the Parliamentary Budget Officer's numbers, he says $1,674 is the cost of the average Ontario family, and the rebate is only $1,047. So Ontarians are paying more than they get back, just like British Columbians, where the NDP government is administering the federally mandated carbon tax. And according to the Vancouver Sun today, the budget presented by the NDP in that province says the carbon tax will raise $9 billion over 3 years and only pay back $3 billion. Mr. Speaker, that's a net nearly $6 billion net carbon tax cost. Will he allow BC MPs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for Canadians watching politics and watching this question period, for reporters up in the gallery, or anyone who wants to see a concrete example of the fact that the leader of the official opposition doesn't care about facts, doesn't care about evidence, doesn't care about how the Federation works. He just wants to make clever arguments to score partisan points. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, the British Columbia price on pollution has been there since 2008 and will continue to be administered by British Columbia, not the federal government. Well done.
So I live in British Columbia. My business got destroyed last year, so I didn't make a full income, but I made like 20-something thousand, 25 grand, I don't know, something like that last year. I paid myself out of my business 10 grand, and so my personal earnings was $10,000. I got no rebate. So let's just get straight about this absolute bull crap of rebates. I don't know how they administer them, but like I should have probably qualified for the maximum rebate. I got nothing. So we're going to jump forward here a bit because there's some block questions. And Jagmeet, for whatever reason, now his thing is he's grilling Trudeau on Indigenous rights and reconciliation stuff. The NDP, I don't know, his numbers have gone down since the pharmacare deal, or this, you know, the little pharmacare deal he did. And it obviously didn't work for his party. So now he's picking a new thing, which is the First Nations rights. I don't know. Well, he just bounces around. But anyways, we're jumping ahead here.
That I have Chef.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
April Fool's Day carbon tax hike of 23% will hit Nova Scotians especially hard. The Prime Minister's tax will cost $1,500 for the average Nova Scotia family, far more than they get back in rebates. That's why Nova Scotia's Assembly passed a unanimous motion with all three parties supporting it, calling for federal MPs from that province to vote with Conservatives to spike the hike. One of those MPs is from King's Hants, the chair of the Agriculture Committee, which has been studying the carbon tax pain for farmers. So the question is for the chair of the Agriculture Committee, will he vote with us to spike the hike?
So what you can't really hear there is they said, sit down, the base of the front bench here. The Liberals are telling the King's Hand representative to sit down. They don't want him to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And look, what the honourable member is actually suggesting is false. We have real-world data to demonstrate in provinces where the system actually applies, families receive hundreds of dollars more each year than they pay in fuel charges. The Conservatives pretend to care about affordability, yet they oppose measures to put more money in the pockets of families. They pretend to care about affordability, but they oppose measures that protect seniors' pensions. They pretend to care about affordability, but they vote against measures to remove the interest on Canada's student loans. Mr. Speaker, we will do everything we can to make life more affordable, including putting more money in the pockets of families while we fight climate change at the same time.
The track record of this guy, he's destroyed the country with immigration, now he's destroyed the country with housing. This guy should be in jail for the rest of his life for his crimes against Canadians.
Leader of the Opposition.
Well, that parliamentary censorship proves everything you need to know about this and everything else in this government. Right. I asked a question of the member for King's Hants, the chair of the Agriculture Committee, who's now studying the painful impacts of the carbon tax, and the front bench here shut him down, told him to sit down and shut up because they had a better mouthpiece for the PMO who would stand and speak in his stead. Mr. Speaker, the question is for the member for King's Hants, the chair of the Agriculture Committee. His committee studying how the carbon tax hurts farmers. Will he vote to spike the hike?
They're talking about this guy here.
Speaker, if the honourable member has qualms about the member for King's Hands, I can reassure him he is a champion for his community. He launched a petition recently to stand up to the Conservative government in Nova Scotia for changes to the agricultural sector in his community. Every time the Conservatives ask a question about the environment, it's to find out ways that they can do less. The member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke has suggested flooding in the Ottawa River was a result of regulations that were not in place. The member from Caribou, Prince George, has suggested climate change is not a result of industrial pollution, but of more body heat from a growing population. The member from Red Deer Lacombe visited school kids to say carbon dioxide was plant food. Mr. Speaker, this...
He's absolutely right. It is a joke, an April Fool's joke, and the joke is on Canadian taxpayers, especially Nova Scotians, who will have to pay $1,500 in higher carbon taxes after that hike goes ahead. He says that the member for King's Hands is a champion who can't even speak, who's silenced by his own MPs. Will the member...
Man.
Order.
This little...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition has 10 seconds left on the clock.
Will the censored champion break his silence and tell us, will he vote for his constituents to spike the hike, or will he rip them off on April Fool's?
It's a slam dunk, man. They're not getting out of this.
For housing, infrastructure, and communities.
Speaker, the Conservatives want to peddle false information to trick Canadians into voting for them. The reality, proven not by projections, but by real-world data, is that people who live in my province receive more money every year from the rebates that they receive than the fuel charge that they pay. Everything the Conservatives do...
We're not buying it, Gumby. Sit down.
Mr. Speaker, at every instance the Conservatives have an opportunity to speak in House, they do one of two things. Advocate to do less on the environment or to take money from families in my community. I will support neither. We will do whatever we can to put more money in the pockets of families and do the right thing for future generations.
That man is a disgrace.
Mr. Speaker, the question was for the silent member from King's Hands. He is asked to explain how he's voting for a carbon tax of $1,500 per family that only pays back $963 in rebates. I asked him specifically to stand and answer, but he's been shut down and shut up by his masters in the PMO. So once again, will the chair of the Agriculture Committee and member for King's Hands stand in today and tell us whether he will vote to spike the hike or raise the tax?
So we just saw there was a masterful display from Pierre Poilievre with his voice and commanding as a leader. If you notice, well, as soon as that started, he started speaking very quietly, which forces people to really listen and, lean in. And it's like demanding respect and commanding the room. This is just another sign of a true leader. Unlike Justin Trudeau, who's actually listening, who actually really takes a guy serious. None of us do, because he's a loser and a liar. And where is Justin Trudeau? Did he just get up and leave? Where'd he go? He's gone. He just stormed out at some point. It's embarrassing. Trudeau just rage quit again.
We'll invite all members to please listen to their House Leader.
I have a question for the member of the Defense Committee from Selkirk Interlake. Why did he sell out the people of Ukraine in voting against the free trade arrangement?
Chrystia Freeland. Good question.
Order.
We should have a rule that there's no more mention of Ukraine in Canadian Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, the people of King's Hands, Nova Scotia, are learning they don't have a voice in Parliament because he has been silenced. The Prime Minister is terrified that he might stand up and get off script. He knows that the unanimous will of the Nova Scotia legislature, Liberals, Conservatives, and New Democrats, was passed in a motion calling for all of that province's MPs to vote against the hike. So will the member for King's Hands, who's the chair of the Agriculture Committee, stand up for farmers in his riding and vote with us to spike the hike? Yes or no?
Speaker, the member for King's Hants stands up for farmers, stands up for his constituents, stands up for the people of Nova Scotia, and stands up for the people of Canada every single day. On this side of the House, we are incredibly proud to have him as our colleague. And one thing that he knows is the people of King's Hants do not need cuts, and that is all the Conservatives have to offer them or any single Canadian.
This is like a mother talking to like another parent about their kid bullying their kid. Like, this is embarrassing. At this point, the leader from King's Hants needs to stand up and actually speak. Like, this is a disgrace.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the member for King's Hants is in the witness protection program today. He can't possibly stand up when his whip waves for him to sit down, which is exactly what happened a moment ago when I asked him a legitimate question as chair of the Agriculture Committee, a committee that's studying the devastating impact of the carbon tax on farmers in his riding and across the country. So for a sixth time, will he come out of the witness protection program and announce whether he will vote for our motion to spike the hike?
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives love to talk Canada down. They traffic in fear and falsehood. But on this side of the House, we believe in Canada and we believe in Canadians. And that's why I am so glad to share some good news with the members of this House. And that is the inflation number for February, which came out this morning, 2.8% below expectations within the Bank of Canada's target range. That is the second month in a row. In January it was 2.9. Within the target, our plan is working, Mr. Speaker.
More like your plan to rob Canadians' bank accounts and get rich while destroying this country is working. Yeah, that's working.
Last year in my riding, Colk Farms, a local producer, was forced to pay $62,000 just in carbon tax on his natural gas alone. That's $62,000. And what this Liberal NDP government doesn't understand, because it is so out of touch, is that when Canadians go to the grocery store, they pick up that bill when they go to buy groceries for their families.
And, you know, I'd like to say to the member opposite, I want a reminder of the rural top-up coming to the carbon rebate. So a family of four in Alberta is going to see $2,160. A family in my riding is going to see $1,430 when they live in a rural area. My friends, we know what it's like. That's why we're there to help people with the carbon rebate.
I think what's clear is that the Liberals have a dysfunctional relationship with the truth. Yeah. You see, Canadians pay more than they actually get back. And so for the average Albertan family, they pay $2,943. Meanwhile, they get back $2,032, which means ultimately they are $1,000 in the hole.
Speaker, I'm not sure what's happening on the Conservative side of this House. Maybe it's that they've joined the Ag Chair in the Witness Protection Program when it comes to defending the interests of Albertans and their pensions. Where's the MP for Edmonton Mill Woods? Where's the...
Bolsonaro has lost his marbles, man.
I'll tell you where Albertan MPs are. They're standing up for their constituents and voting non-confidence in this government that needs to be replaced. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, upwards of 50 active military families are using the food bank, and I just visited one in Oromocto, New Brunswick. 50 families who are serving at Base Gagetown, Canada's largest military base. This is an absolute disgrace and completely unacceptable.
Oh, the guy from King's Hants is speaking. He's speaking. I guess they let him off the leash.
King's Hants from the top.
Speaker, I'm glad the Tories stood up. They might not like the question, though, because the member from Carleton talks about farmers in King's Hants, but he actually stands in their way. He will not allow Bill 234 to come to this House to actually be voted on. And so I called on the member of Carleton to actually do that to support farmers. But my question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister from Nova Scotia. Can he tell this House, and indeed Nova Scotians, the work that we've done to adjust the federal backstop to support rural Canadians, and including the programs we put in place on affordability around home heating and heat pumps, contrary to those guys across the way?
all these fools like cheering like they're doing something great. Like they are causing so much suffering to us, and then they this is just a game to them where they get to just play like power player and make $300K a year. Meanwhile, real people are suffering, real people are dying. Like these people are disgraceful.
Province of Nova Scotia, we have felt the impacts of climate change more than any other part of the country, with wildfires, Hurricane Fiona, floods in the honourable member's riding. He has been a staunch advocate for rural communities and for the agricultural sector. I am proud to stand alongside him today and will be for years.
Like, look at all this pathetic celebration. You guys shouldn't be patting yourselves on the back when people are suffering and dying. There's something wrong with these people. Something seriously wrong.
Mr. Speaker, our government is always focused on protecting Canadians from crime. Absolutely. That's why we're working with police forces, municipal authorities, and provincial governments to do exactly.
They just said leave the keys at the door then so they can steal your car.
Exactly everything we need to do to crack down on this increasingly violent criminal activity.
2 years ahead of everyone else. We're the only country that has committed to eliminate public financing for fossil fuel subsidies. We have the best performance of all G7 countries in terms of greenhouse gas reduction between 2019 and 2021. We are working to fight climate change. We are working to improve air quality all across the country, Mr. Speaker.
This is the guy who tripled coal exports to China. Tripled. What does that do for the climate when you're tripling coal exports to China, man? This is so stupid. Everything is just a big lie. By watching these House of Commons sessions, it's become quite clear to me we need a system of government where there's no parties. It should be every member in there is an independent, thus they can vote based on their own true feeling, not just being pressured by Justin Trudeau, because he's seeing more and more of these liberals popping up saying, yeah, I think the carbon tax is BS. If all of them were just their own party, they're all an individual and independent, they wouldn't feel that pressure. Thus, you would get a more honest, real, balanced approach to this. You wouldn't have all these games. You wouldn't have essentially two parties that dominate the whole thing. I mean, the NDP is close. It's better in Canada than in America. America, there's just, Republicans and Democrats, and that's it. All the other ones, they don't even register. It is possible if you had someone really compelling, say in the Green Party or PPC or whatever, and they could actually gain support, but it's not that likely. So we essentially have three parties in Canada, but really, if we had a system, I don't even know if there's a country on earth that does this, but a system where it's like everyone is an individual representative and everyone has to vote on that. And like the system they have in Switzerland where they have 6 prime ministers that get elected and they all have to vote. So you can't just get one narcissist with a, an ego power problem, and say, his wife leaves him and then he's just a raging lunatic and then he makes even more irrational, terrible decisions for the country. You would just avoid that because all the other 5 members would vote against that guy making terrible decisions. So that's where I'll leave this episode. Thanks for stopping by and watching the video here. If you want to check out some merch, I got that down on the shelf below. I got a video on my second channel of Michelle Ferreri absolutely unloading and blasting the carbon tax in Parliament, which happened just before this House of Commons session. If you want to check that out, be sure to subscribe over there. Subscribe here. Turn on the bell notifications so you're notified when my videos come out. Stay warm, stay fed. I'll see you guys in the next one.